How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael Thurber, photojournalist and sociologist here at VEDA World News, and I am sitting with Carmen Maria Montiel.
Yes.
All right, I wanted to make sure I said it correct because I did not want to butcher this fabulous lady's name here. She is on the Republican ticket here for the Congressional District 18 right here in Houston, Texas. Ma'am, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Michael, and I'm so happy to be here with you today so
Yes.
we can tell the people about this campaign.
Well, let's start here. Let's talk about you first. You're running for this campaign. What got you into the world of politics?
Well, I was born and raised in Venezuela.
Okay, Venezuela.
And I came to the United States in 1988 as a student.
Okay.
And the plan was to get back to Venezuela with now, my degree from the United States, speaking English. I already had a morning talk show because I'm a journalist.
Okay, another fellow journalist
Yes.
here. Please respect.
Yeah, so I'm a journalist. I already had a morning talk show in Venezuela that at the time, it was the first time ever that we had a format with only women, way before Barbara Walters. So,
Okay.
So imagine going back with a degree in United States, speaking English. My company I work for, they were like, Carmen, you come back, just write your ticket. What is it that you want to do?
Oh.
So I had a very promising future in Venezuela. And what happened is while I was here, and it's when the worst part of the problems in Venezuela happened because things doesn't happen overnight.
Understood.
It takes 50 plus years. But that was the time when Hugo Chavez tried to overturn the government twice, and the crime just completely went rampage, and they were trying to enter the homes and all of that. And my father was a visionary for years. He was telling us, and he pushed us to send us here to study, and he pushed like, well, stay there. But I was the one that since I have all this promising career in Venezuela as a journalist, I really want to go back. I was like, Dad, what are you talking about? But at the time, since things were so unstable, decided to say, let me wait a little, see if things get better. And wait a little was that it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And with time, staying here, since I've been here since 1988, moved to Houston in 1991 and worked for Telemundo as an anchor woman. And with time, I started to see how things started to change, how our freedom of speech was taken away by politically correctness.
And we see that even more and more now where...
Oh, now they just completely, they are shameful. Before the excuse was politically correct, which should have never happened because freedom of speech is freedom of speech.
Correct.
But the part is always not politically correct. That started after I was here, that I was like, what's happening?
remember that. You couldn't call a janitor, it had to be called a custodial worker.
So that's how they started taking our freedom of speech. And now they're just completely shameless about taking away your freedom of speech. And more changes. And he got to the point and said, there are things my dad always told us. Bureaucracy and corruption is destroying Venezuela, And then I saw how bureaucracy started to grow in the United States and corruption, and I was like, oh my God, it was like my dad's words, ringing back in my head, and he didn't live to see it. He moved to the United States because of the situation in Venezuela in 97. He passed away in 99. Okay. And things got, but then when, through my divorce, that was, I finally have to face the judicial system. I was never involved in any court. And so the corruption at the judicial level.
You better believe it.
And when I lived that in my skin, and people don't understand that when you are a legal immigrant, and you come here the legal way, and in my case, because my father put that, my dad was a great admirer of the United States. So this was perfection. And when I saw that there was corruption in the judicial system, I was like, wait a minute, this is not good. And that's when I said, we're becoming more and more like Venezuela. And I started, all these things that were happening was the path that took Venezuela to what it is today. And that's when I said, am I going to do nothing and know that this is happening and allow for my children not to have a future? Or I do something. And I'm a go-getter, and I said, you know what?
And I feel that from you. Like during our earlier conversation today, I really felt this sense of urgency
Yes.
From you that was like really imminent. And I said, hey, I could see why she's holding the positions and the perspective that she's holding here.
And it is that because it's about my children, your children, our grandchildren.
Okay.
And what happened is, at least I had the opportunity to stay in this country and make a beautiful life. After Telemundo, I built a medical practice and worked there
Wow.
for 20 years. My children were born and raised here. My oldest daughter just graduated Master in Arts, summa cum laude from University of Houston.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My second one is on her way today to Miami, moving to Miami. She graduated from Tulane Law, and she's
Okay.
on her way to work for a law firm in Miami. My son is studying chemical engineering and
Wow.
third year. So I built my family, and at least I have the opportunity to stay in this country and have a life. But if we lose United States, where are we gonna go, Michael?
Understood.
Where? And that's when I said, I cannot allow this from happening. What's gonna happen to the future of so many millions of people? What happens if this country fails? The world has no opportunity. That's the reality. This is it. This is checkmate. And the communists have been growing around the world for years and taking places. And they took Cuba, but Cuba was a little island that had no resources. They always wanted Venezuela because
Why?
Venezuela.
Why do you feel that way?
Because the first thing that Fidel Castro did was attack Venezuela in the 60s. But
Okay.
we were strong enough to overcome his little guerrilla guys. But
Okay.
he in Venezuela because we have the resources. Cuba only had tobacco and sugar. Now Venezuela have oil, minerals,
Yes.
gold, water, coltan. You cannot build an iPhone, any phone nowadays without coltan.
This
And
is
we're
true.
one of the very few countries. So he always wanted. So the communists learned with time that in order to become in power, they were not going to do it like they did before with coups, overthrowing government.
Okay.
Because, the world changed. So they learned they have to get there through elections.
Okay.
So he started, there were so many Venezuelans like Chavez and Nicolás Maduro, when they trained in Cuba, okay? And they told and said, no, you need to win elections. And after you win, you need to make sure you never lose again.
Okay.
And they've been infiltrating, like, our university. So I've been seeing, like, when I was a little girl, the border was open in Venezuela.
Okay.
This is early 70s. And Venezuela was paradise. The people were so nice and hardworking people. You could leave your doors open, your car open. It was so safe.
And it was that's the same position and perspective that many older Americans have
About
in the
United
70s and the
States.
60s. They had that same disposition where they felt like, hey, I didn't necessarily have to lock my doors like that.
That
I didn't
was
have to put
Venezuela.
bars on my window. Yeah.
But when the border was open and we got all of these influx of illegal immigrants, guess what? Crime went up. Drugs. I remember because I'm the little one, I'm the youngest of 6 siblings. So my older siblings were teenagers.
Okay.
And my parents were so worried, watching over the kids and the drugs because it became a problem at the time. And then they were breaking into the home and stealing. And then what happened is no country is ready to absorb a vertical growth of the population like it just happened to us with all these illegal immigrants. So the first thing that destroyed was healthcare. Because Venezuela had a healthcare system that was paid through the Social Security, free for all Venezuelans, with incredible hospitals. Our doctors were very well trained in the United States and Europe. And of course, they have to go to this public hospital because it was for us Venezuelans, and they destroyed because I don't know, somehow this it's too much to hold. And the Venezuelans at that time, they have to acquire private health insurance. Imagine that when we were able for our country to provide for us free health care for all of us, because of this, then the Venezuelan people have to get private
Well, let's backtrack. You
insurance.
stated that there was an influx of illegal immigrants. Where did these illegal immigrants come from during that time in Venezuela?
Mostly Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And then we got a lot of people also for the islands. Remember, Venezuela have the largest Caribbean coast. And then many people came also through the islands. And then what happened? There is no housing for the people. And then that's when Venezuela started to see what we call cerros, ranchos, or because they started building houses like they call it in Brazil favelas, we call it ranchos, out of aluminum.
Yeah, like tin rooftops.
Exactly, tin
Yeah.
rooftop. And I was 8 years old when my family, we moved to Caracas, which is the capital. And Zulia is like Texas. It's flat, it's about oil and cows. But Caracas, so I'm in the right place. I'm
Okay.
right at home.
Okay,
I
right
love
at home
to be
here
in
in
Texas because
Oil and cows.
oil and cows. So God always put me in the right place. But when I was 8 years old, we moved to Caracas, which is the capital, and it's a valley. And I remember how beautiful, because the valley, how all the mountains and the hills were green.
Mhm.
As I grew older, all those hills and mountains were taken with ranchos. And we lost the green, and it just became this awful thing to look. It was pretty at night, though, because you see, it was like the hills were lit with the lights. But during the day, and the crime, and there were areas where these people raised their own flag, and it did not allow Venezuelan or authorities to enter.
Okay.
It was that dangerous. And what happened is, and people need to understand, when people come under those conditions, they don't come with the willingness to adapt to the country. Like, when you come legally, you're like, I want to adapt. I want to be an American, and I want to be the best American there is. And I don't want to be a burden to this country. I want to provide and be a functional part
Of
of
the
this country. These people, imagine, they were raising their own country in these areas. And it was dangerous for Venezuelans or the authorities to get there. And that's happening right now in the United States, and
So-
people are not realizing it.
So what I'm getting the sense of is that you saw a trend when you were young, and you're now seeing that trend here, right? And now that has propelled you, and along with the corruption right here in the United States with criminal justice system here. So
Well, that was the spark, and
Okay.
then all
Everything
these
goes-
add-ons.
Okay, got you. So you said, hey, I feel like I can do something about this, or at least I should try. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, I should do, because I know and try and fight, because my children are grown,
Mhm.
and I'm a businesswoman today. I'm a real estate broker, but I have extra time now that my children are all going through their life and college. They're just now the only one that's going to come back for breaks is my son for the next 2 years. I have the time to fight for their future and to fight for our country, because we cannot lose the United States. If we lose the United States, this is checkmate.
Well, I don't know. There are a sizable amount of people, especially in the BRIC nations, that feel the opposite of that. They're saying, hey, no longer is the United States the lead in the world as far as being like a unipolar system or
Yeah.
unipolar power. We're now moving into a multipolar power, where multiple countries are now shining. They are now gaining prominence, like China, Russia, India, Brazil, Iran, Iraq. Well, not necessarily.
But they're all communist countries, and that's
Okay.
what we need to be careful.
But, and again, just playing the devil's advocate, Singapore.
Well, the majority of them are, we're talking about China,
Yeah, but-
Iran,
correct.
they're a communist country.
Okay,
and,
but
and
even
Russia.
Singapore is a communist country. There's no problem with Singapore, is there?
Well, yes and no, because what happened with Singapore is quite interesting.
Okay.
Because remember, Singapore, they left a dictatorship, and what happened is they imposed, there is nothing wrong with obeying the rules and giving people hard punishment for being criminals. And that's what happened in Singapore.
Mhm.
After the last dictator, they just gave hard punishment to people to commit crimes. They invest in the best education they
They do.
have. So much so that United States implemented Singapore math in our schools
Okay.
because it's so good. So actually, sometimes it just gave a turn that it was a very positive turn, but still it's capitalist. And some of them still call themselves like socialists and communists, but if you see the system, it's a capitalist system.
Okay.
But I believe that the justice needs to be tough on crime. It's the only way.
Why do you feel that way?
Because look what's happening when suddenly the Democrats decided that we should not be tough on crime. that the criminals have rights. Yes, the criminals have rights, but doesn't the victims have more rights? So shouldn't the rights of the victim be above the criminals?
I don't know. I think, let me not say I think, because I don't have a position. I'm not supposed to have a position.
Okay.
However, there are a sizable amount of people that take the position that no one should have more superior rights than the other.
Well, but nobody should have the right to take my life away,
True. Guaranteed.
to violate my
This
body,
is absolutely true. Yes, ma'am.
to violate my properties.
Mm-hmm. I agree. 100%.
So those principles are to be first. And like I said, if you don't have, this whole thing about bonds. Oh, the bonds, and oh, the poor people cannot pay the bonds, so let's just do away with that bonds. And I'm like, if you cannot pay for the crime, then
You
don't do
shouldn't
it.
do it. Correct.
It's like, please, because even so many rich people, they don't get away with it. Once they get caught, they might pay for the bond, but eventually they're gonna go through the trial and they're gonna, there's gonna be a ruling, and if they're guilty, they're gonna go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reality. And look what happened with this girl that was killed in North Carolina
Okay.
in a train. This guy from behind her just knifed her and killed her. This guy was released like 10 or more than 10 times. How come, this guy who was a professional criminal was released so many times until, and this is when justice, our first and most important principle in the Bible is you have the right to protect your life
Okay.
and the life of others. And if the justice system is to be there to protect the citizens. And this guy was allowed to walk free so many times until he killed somebody.
Well, the question would be, was there some type of provision in the law that allows such an individual to essentially take advantage?
Well, the provision in the law now is that nobody pays bond.
Is
That's
that,
the provision, which is new,
is that
which
here
is
in
not.
Harris County, or is
Oh,
that?
it's across, all like cities and counties where there is Democrats that believe that, and this is how they twist the words.
Okay, how do they do that?
The words are twisted with like justice for all.
Okay.
And this is the way, because they ask you, are you agree with justice for all? And you say, yeah. And I said, oh, but that means it's justice for all, for the criminals and for the victims. See, and that's how they twist and make you think that you are for justice for all. And I'm like, no, justice should not, you lose justice when you commit a crime.
Agreed.
So that's what I'm talking about. And if somebody keeps on getting arrested with aggravated things, what was he walking free?
Okay.
It happened with also the rapes that we have seen here, or killings. These people had a criminal record. What were they doing? Well, in many cases, illegal immigrants, why were not deported? If I believe an illegal immigrant gets arrested, should be deported right away.
Why?
Because you already violate the law of the United States by entering illegally.
True.
That's the first crime.
It is a crime.
And then once you are here, commit another crime,
That's two.
that's two. So I think is reason enough to deport that person.
I think that a lot of Americans, no matter what side of the aisle they are, can actually agree to that. I really do. Sometimes the media likes to portray people like they don't agree
Yes.
with that particular stance. I guess it's because it doesn't necessarily affect them right away.
And we cannot think, that's the thing. People tend to think that's happening out there. The crime is happening out there. It's not affecting me. It's gonna come a time that is going to affect everybody.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell you, like, when I grew up in Venezuela, there were no walls in front of the houses. You could drive, it was like United States. You have a beautiful home with a beautiful front yard. The crime became so rampage that everybody had to build a wall in front of the house. And not only a wall, they have to have wires or broken glass at the top of the
Really?
wall. Yes. And people don't realize that if we don't stop this, we're all going to be affected. What do you think is the proliferation of gated communities in Houston?
Very good point.
Safety.
Very good point.
And let me tell you, and living in a gated community is not fun because you have to deal with HOAs.
You do.
And I'm a realtor. And let me tell you, I don't
Well-
want to deal with HOAs. But people is looking for safety.
And they are. Let me ask you a question. Recently, President Donald Trump decided to deploy National Guard to other cities outside of the District of Columbia. Now, for the vast majority of Americans who are I wouldn't say uneducated, but unknowledgeable on that fact, he very well can do that in D.C. Since D.C. is not a city, state, or town, it is a district. So he can do that. No problem. But what about cities like Houston or even Chicago?
I believe, Chicago has a major problem in crime. Let's be realistic.
And I'm from Chicago, so I know.
Well, and you know,
Okay.
you must know. Tell me if I'm telling you a lot.
Okay. And you're not. You're not. Chicago does have a problem in crime.
And
But
we do too, but Chicago is worse than Houston.
But
We
you know,
are like,
as a sociologist, I tend to look past the surface. And I'm wondering, because I can't help it, why? Why are people committing so many crimes? That's what I like to deal with as a sociologist. So I look at that and say, okay, is it economics? Is it job security? What's going
it's
on?
a combination of all of that.
Okay.
Listen, one of the first things, what happened is people have not realized that we're being infiltrated by socialists. And they call themselves socialists, but they're communists. And we were talking about the neocons. And we're, and the major thing is they have infiltrated our institutions, government positions, our colleges. And the first thing they want to do is to destroy education.
Why do you think that? Well, I'm sorry, why do you hold that position?
Because if people are not educated, then they have no future. They don't have a possibility of a job. They don't have a possibility to think. So then we have a crime problem.
Okay.
And then add to that the illegal immigrants. And then add to that the justice system in these cities are not working. We have that problem here in Houston. They're just letting everybody out as they commit a crime and they're let out.
Well, looking at Houston, and I can say this because I look at the numbers. Houston has an issue with the jail itself, whereas it is so overcrowded. You have, I can't count how many inmates have died in the custody of being in jail. They're not building another one.
They're not, so what do we do?
Now, I'm not in charge. I can't say that.
So, and now what happened is, now mind me that we here in Houston, we're the second city with the most illegal immigrants. So that adds to the problem.
Okay.
We don't, they took away trade education from the high schools, which was a terrible thing. And that was,
And I think that happened all over the country, really.
it happened all over the country. And it's so sad because let me tell you, a kid, an 18-year-old kid that graduates with a trade can go to work.
This is true.
Okay? And if they don't have the money to pay for college, then what they're gonna do?
Well, look again, going back and looking in history in my little time machine, our issue didn't just happen overnight when it comes to trades or anything like that. That issue that we're seeing today
It's little by little because they were taking away things in order to take away education.
was it really?
And it's part of the communist plan because they want to make people dependable. And then they promise you, I'm going to help you. Remember, vote for me because I'm going to help you. And they never help you. And come in the next election, yes, I'm going to help you. And they don't want to help you because they need you to keep on voting for them. And they get to a point that when they're in power, they're like, oh, we don't want to educate them because then they're not going to vote for us.
Well, going back to what we were just saying right here, when you look at the timeline back to Bill Clinton, the signing of the NAFTA agreement, exporting jobs over to China.
That was terrible.
I remember
agree with
RCA
it.
TV. I remember Zenith TV. They're not here anymore. JVC television. They're not here anymore.
No, because he took away jobs from us.
Correct. So when we exported those jobs, say, hey, we don't have to do that. We're Americans. We lost that base and that drive to be industrial in the sense of trades. You see what I'm saying?
And we have complete cities that went ghosted.
Yes, Chicago is part of. I remember as a kid, and the point of professional privilege. My father, he's an immigrant, right? Comes all the way from Haiti, right? I remember his friends having that conversation. Hey, you should go work in the steel mill. You make a lot of money, and they did make a lot of money. However, when those steel mills closed 2 months, 3 months after that conversation, everybody lost their homes. Everybody was just broke.
Now you're agreeing with me that this is being a plan in the making for years.
Well, whether
It's part of
is
the
it
plan.
is it a plan or is it capitalism? Not saying
It's
that
not
capitalism is
capitalism.
bad. It's just that if you can get something cheaper and sell it for a higher price,
No, but it's not capitalism. Capitalism is the only system that takes people, raise people off from poverty.
it is true.
Okay? But if it works right, you don't chip jobs away. You trade,
Correct.
okay? With tariff, I agree with that.
You agree with tariffs?
Definitely. When we didn't pay tariff, we have a way healthier, wealthier America. Now we chip jobs away, and now those jobs went there, and then when we get the things now on top of it, we have to pay
No,
tariff.
typically that's how the government used to make their money. They tariff, right?
Exactly. But what happened is we're not. The other countries are putting tariff on the United States, and we're not.
This is true.
This is simple thing talking about. You sent, let's see, Biners making wine in California.
Okay.
And you decide to open one of your companies in Chile, okay? And of course, they're making that bottle of wine in Chile is gonna be way cheaper than making it here, okay? And then you have to bring it back to the United States and you have to pay the tariff, okay? While the Chilean people send that same, their wine here and they don't pay tariff. And they already make it cheaper and they don't pay tariff. Actually, our wine people, when make it over there and then send it here, have to pay tariff. When you go to the grocery store, which bottle of wine is Chilean, same you're gonna pay for it? The cheaper one, which is the Chilean made, or the one that is the American one that was made in Chile but brought back? Where are you gonna pay for the cheaper one or for the more expensive one?
I don't know if that's a fair question. And I'm not meaning to give you pushback, but I am saying, hey, why not tax the American company that decided to ship that over there and to bring it back in the first place?
And that's the intent with the tariff.
Okay.
The intent with the tariff is if you took your product over there to be made in that other country, and now you want to bring it back because you're paying cheaper,
Correct.
but then you bring it back, no paying tariff. Well, now that's the whole purpose.
Now
you're
fair.
gonna pay tariff,
Yeah.
okay? And now that's gonna force these companies to say,
keep jobs here.
you know what, we need to come back.
You do. I really support that. Again,
That's how I see it.
Let
That's
me
the
not
whole
say
idea.
that because I cannot publicly say that. I can't do that. I have to be non-biased. But on a personal matter, for me personally, not VEDA World News, but personally, I could support that. It keeps
That's the whole point.
American jobs here.
And then it keeps the jobs here, and then we need to bring trade education back into our high schools so our kids are able to do that. And we need to have after school programs because when our kids are busy, they're not going to join crime. If you have kids doing nothing,
They'll find
guess
something.
what they're going to find something that is not pretty, and that's why we have the problems with the jail. And I will go farther. When I came to the United States, we used to have call centers. And I remember applying for a
those
job.
are gone. Those are already in.
I remember
Yeah.
trying to make some extra money when I was a student. I applied
Yeah.
for one of those, but my accent back then it was very heavy, so of course I didn't get the job. But all those jobs are gone.
They are.
Where? India, South America,
And now
Philippines.
artificial intelligence.
Exactly. You know what? I will tariff that. I will tariff that because it will force for those jobs, for those call centers to get back. And guess what? That's a pretty good job for a recently graduate kid. That's a great job for a mother.
Let's switch gears.
Working at home.
You
As
are
a mother, I say.
No, I can understand that, but you are currently running for the 18th Congressional District.
Yes.
how would you tackle some of the issues that are plaguing the 18th district right here in Houston, Texas?
See, that district is so diverse.
It is.
It is like we have multi-million-dollar homes, and then we have the poorest of the poor in the district.
You see them right there on the red line.
It's right there, and it's very sad, and that there are areas in the district that with abandoned buildings, with abandoned homes,
Correct.
and people living on the streets, and that's what I'm saying. I said, if we would have educated these people, with trade jobs, that they feel, because if you know you're gonna go out and get a job, you feel proud about yourself.
This is true.
And if you do better, and then eventually say, you know what? Because not everybody's made for college. That's the other issue.
Yeah, but the other issue that a lot of people are not touching on is mental health. There are a lot of homeless people who are suffering from mental health, in which they
I'm
are
gonna
just
get there.
unable to work.
But if we educate people and they can work, and that's my main thing.
Mm-hmm.
People have jobs.
This is true.
People have after-school education, and let me tell you something in my district that people have not taken advantage of.
What's that?
It was created by President Trump in his first term, opportunity zones.
All right, tell us about that.
Opportunity zones, the whole idea of creating opportunity zones was in order to bring investors with tax benefit. There is nothing wrong to give tax benefits to somebody that has the money to invest, because what happens when they come to opportunity zones to invest? They create
This is
jobs.
an absolute truth, because right now Houston, Texas is struggling in the film industry, and one of the biggest things that they were looking for was tax credits up front in order to do Hollywood productions right here.
And then you have the opportunity zones, and then you bring investors. And what happens when you bring investors? They create jobs.
They do.
And what happens when they create jobs? Well, they need housing.
They do.
So we build housing, and then when there have more people working in their companies, now these same companies will invest in education, and that's a way to help our
You are
district.
absolutely correct about that, and I can attest to that, because again, when you build something like, let's say, Elon Musk's next project, which he is actually having a project right here in Houston, he's building an underground tunnel. He's thinking
But then
about
what
that.
happens? We have a bunch of people that don't have the education
Right,
or
you
the
have to
trade.
train them.
Or the trade, and that's why it's so important to me. Why was ever trade removed from schools in the United States?
I again, as a sociologist, I think that because America thought it was going to be cheaper and that they were too good to do trades. I remember people used to look down on the plumber. Now that same plumber that they look down on makes $125,000.
Oh God, you make good money as a plumber.
You do. You make a lot of good money. Those electricians, people who works in construction.
Welders.
Well, we have a shortage of welders.
Oh, welders.
Right here in Houston, Texas, there is a shortage. They can't find enough welders.
See, and that's where I'm so big in trade education.
I understand that, and I can also support that.
And let me tell you, the east side of the district, which is the poor side of the district, like the center and the port, it's near the industrial area of Houston. Imagine having all those kids educated to work in the industrial area, which is nearby.
Well, what about with 18th Congressional District? Are you in favor of bringing back trades that will greatly benefit the people within the 18th District?
That's my first thing in the
And how would
agenda.
you do that?
Well, like I tell you, taking advantage of opportunity zones, bringing investors, also the new laws that was passed last week also give, incentive for investors in Texas. Okay? So there is, and people say, oh no, we have to hate the rich and tax the rich, remember. There's always tax the rich. And say, but the rich are the ones who are giving jobs. So actually, tax incentive make these people come here and create jobs. So Mama Great, and also bringing back those call centers so our mothers in my district can work for home while they are watching over their children.
A lot of women do not want to work from home. A lot of women prefer to, let me backtrack. A lot of women don't want to live that particular life. They feel, quote unquote, empowered to go out into the world and go get a job.
But so many of these women are not making a penny. They're living out of welfare. And then again, I said, if this is an opportunity. And then we have to also train the people to do these jobs, invest into that.
This is true.
And that's the job. Well, before you just were living out of welfare. Now you can work from home instead of living out of welfare. Be a good mother watching over your children so they don't join crime, okay? And thus, and it makes you feel good when you get that check.
Well, now, here's the next question, though. The next question would be, what about the pay? Like, how do you incentivize people to get off government subsidies and welfare and different things like that? The average pay is roughly $14, $15 an hour here in Houston. You know, in order for someone to live, I think they need at least $22 an hour.
Well, let me tell you that we need to put that the numbers, because I know if we tariff these call centers and what is called internet commerce,
Okay.
that will mean $6 billion. No, actually $6 trillion for United States.
Okay.
So we can help pay the debt and create education and improve the pay, because let me tell you, people in India are making a 6-digit salary doing these jobs we're talking about.
Okay.
And India, I was in India in 2006.
Okay.
And I was talking with somebody, you know, about India and how actually India has completely changed because of all these jobs. And actually the local companies in India are having a hard time getting employees, because all of these employees prefer to work for the American, because they say, come on, that's a 6-digit job. They said, if I go back to India, they said, you will not recognize it.
Well, one of the things about India was that they said they had too many engineers. Your thoughts on HB1 visas?
Well, we have a problem in illegal immigration, and that's something that we need to fix. We do need certain areas. We do need people. We need a lot of engineers. That's a reality. We don't graduate enough engineers. I'm telling you, I'm the mother of a kid that is studying chemical engineering.
Yes, yes.
And we don't graduate enough. And that we need. And what we need to do is make the legal process easier. It took me 14 years to become a citizen.
Okay.
It took me a lot of sacrifices and money to become a citizen. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult. And there are certain areas that we need the people. And those are the people we need to bring. And I'm going to go to another point. There was a time in the United States when we had migrant visas. And people just came temporarily to work on the farms, or to do certain jobs for a certain amount of months, went back. The Democrats took that away. And then what happened? Oh, then we still need them. So they came illegally.
Question. Do you think that we should, for a certain period of time here in America, have a zero visa fee?
No, I think that it should be, but it should be normal. It costs me a lot of money
I just have to ask
to go through the process, but not zero visa. You know, because the process costs and the paperwork costs. That's it. But it should be something that aligns with that, not that you have to spend thousands of dollars into the process.
Okay.
But a reasonable amount, because you know we don't want to be then becoming. You know, that's when we fail.
Well, the question was, how does America become competitive with China? Because recently, China is saying, hey, you can come to our country for 30 days visa-free.
Well, that's new, because when I went to China, I have to have a visa.
Yeah.
And it was supposedly a year visa, 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw it, I said, well, and then I went to Thailand, have to come back to catch my plane. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, it was only one entry.
Oh, wow.
But I'm going to tell you the truth.
What's that?
Who wants to move to China? I've been there.
Okay, let's ask a question. When was the last time you've been to China?
It was 2007, and let me tell you, it is the only country that I left and said, I'm not coming back.
Now, recently, I'm hearing a different set of reports. I'm hearing that there is almost zero crime on Chinese streets.
That's true. Even back then.
You know, like, hey, they can get around to the airport, check in, check out, less than 30 minutes with the ride. I'm also hearing that they have a very exceptional high-speed train. They have a lot of infrastructure.
And also was in a high-speed train in Japan. But let me tell you, the culture, the people are not friendly. the people are not, we're Texans, you know, we're so friendly and so lovable. I always say I'm in the right place because we're like the Venezuelan people. We just hug and love each other. That's not the case in China.
What is the case in China in 2007?
People was very dried and not friendly, and you're under surveillance all the time. You can tell me, Carmen, go back and all free expensive. And let me tell you, we didn't have access to internet. And I understand that even now, if you do, you're under surveillance. And that's communism. And I'm sorry, I believe in freedom.
But isn't the average American always under constant surveillance? I mean,
well, that's one of the problems that is happening, that I believe in total freedom. You know, I believe in having my right of being free, because that's in the Bible. It's my right. It's my right to be free. It's my right to save my life.
Let me ask you.
The pursuit of happiness.
The notion of freedom is such an abstract one. And what I'm saying that is this. Freedom could be anything.
Yeah, but I don't want, and it's true. I know that they see everything through my phone. Listen, I don't have Alexa in my house, because even though they hear everything in my phone, I say, I'm gonna add Alexa to this thing? No. and that's the things people are not realizing, that yeah, we're under surveillance, but it's even worse in China. In China, they have a number system that you're a better citizen, and
social credit score.
The social credit. So listen, there is, they can do whatever to make it appealing.
But the question that I have is, how is a social credit score, and not meaning to challenge you, but how is a social credit score different than a FICO score, where here in America, if you don't have a very specific number, you're either going to get charged more, or you can't even buy a home?
Yeah, but that's based on monetary and your responsibility in paying your bills. Now, the social credit can be anything, and they can just punish you by lowering your social credit, and you don't know, what's going to trigger them, and that's not fair. I believe in that certain things in my life should be private, but that's like one of the times that I went to Venezuela. I don't go to Venezuela anymore since 2012 because it became so dangerous. Well, now it must be safe because they send all the criminals to the United States, all the trend that I want.
Well, I'm very curious because when I looked at the reports, they stated that a lot of Venezuelan people joined the national militia.
Oh, I'm going to talk about that. But now in a second, let's move to that.
Okay.
In Venezuela, one of the times when I went back under communism, suddenly something that never happened before, besides your ID, which is called cédula, and it's not a driver's license. You have to have your cédula, and then you have to have your driver's license.
Okay.
Besides that, you had to get, and that's something that was implemented with the communism, a certain number from certain organization, and you could not purchase absolutely anything without giving that number.
Okay.
So that way they knew how you spend your money. If you bought medicine, what medicine, if you bought, and that's the same thing with China. It's the communist way. They want to know absolutely everything. And that's why I'm so afraid of cash disappearing. Because they want you to get away from cash. So that way they know absolutely how you spend all your money. If you eat one chicken a week, or if you eat 3, or if you eat more steak than chicken.
But we do that already through data analytics. We do that through data mining.
But if you pay in cash, there are certain things that you said.
Yeah, of course.
But so that's what my problem was. So there is no way so that even for free. I'm telling you, I went to India. I want to go back to India. I went to Thailand. I will be back to Thailand. I mean, China. The day I left, I said, I'm not coming back.
Oh.
It was one and done. So now let's talk about the militia in Venezuela.
Okay.
That's the biggest joke there is. People are not realizing they're taking the regular citizens, mostly old people that have never been trained to face because this is what they're telling people.
Mm-hmm.
The Americans are coming to attack us, and they're giving arms and uniforms to all these people that they're just going to have those people killed. They're going to put it in the front. is the cruelest and criminal thing they're doing in Venezuela.
Okay.
And if you see these people, you don't know if you should laugh or cry. That, and also the ignorance. These people are forced to do that.
They are forced.
They don't know what they're facing. You know, will you listen? They come to my house and say, Carmen, you want to join the militia to face the army of the United States? Not even one guy. I don't want to face not even one American soldier. Come on.
Why is that?
God, these are the best of the best. Come on, we have the best army. These guys are trained. They're gonna come get Carmen with my 120 pounds. Yeah, I exercise, but I'm not prepared to face anybody by force. And they're putting men and women and old people, mostly the elder.
Okay.
It is mostly the elderly people in Venezuela. It's such a crime. It is a crime. They do that, and that's one, that would be another crime to be added to Nicolas Maduro, to
Okay.
have these people
What are
killed.
your thoughts on Nicolas Maduro? President Nicolas Maduro.
He's not a president.
He's not.
He's a dictator.
Okay.
He has stole many elections, okay? And not only he's a dictator, he's a criminal dictator. Everybody knows, because it's not a lie. Listen, communism has a problem. Even in the desert, they run out of sand. Because what they did is Venezuela had the best company that ran oil, and it was a government run, and they were so good about training the people. We used to have great universities, and the dream for the people that went, especially engineers in Venezuela, it was to work for PDVSA, Petróleos de Venezuela.
Okay.
And Petróleos de Venezuela then sent all these people to get masters and PhDs around the world. We were known because I have my brother working oil, I have many friends that work in oil. The Venezuela PDVSA was recognized around the world like one of the best oil running companies.
Okay.
And because the people were so professional, so well prepared, what did Hugo Chavez did? Hugo Chavez, these people went on a strike because they were against what he was doing.
Mhm.
And he said, well, I fire you all. And then got all these people that have no education, put them to run the PDVSA. And what happened? They didn't know what they were doing. And when you stop an oil field from production, this is not like opening a water faucet.
Correct. There's a process.
It's a process that takes a long time. So what happened is the oil production of Venezuela went down. And it went down in the best time when the oil was like over $100. So during that time, Dubai became a desert to the city that it is today. Imagine if, and then the little money they stole, if they would have invested in Venezuela, Venezuela would be better than Dubai in a much better conditions, because we're right there in the tropical with the largest Caribbean coast. You would know, imagine, that this is a country that also have not only the reserve, the natural beauty. We have snow, we have desert, we have jungle. You know, if they would have invested, but they stole the money, the production went down,
Who stole the money?
the regime
Okay.
and their friends. And then Hugo Chavez passed away, Nicolas Maduro took over. And when you run out of money and you're stealing so much and you become so hungry for money, what's next? We're talking about the kids. If the kids have nothing to do, what's next? Crime. These guys are stealing so much money and they're hungry for more. What's next? Crime. They all know that they're the heads of Cartel de los Soles, the drug cartel.
Now, I was recently speaking with someone. They stated that that particular cartel doesn't specialize in drugs, yet they specialize in human smuggling more than likely.
That's Tren de Aragua. There's
Okay.
two separate things.
Oh, two separate. Okay.
There's two separate things, and they're both being declared terrorist groups.
Okay.
So Cartel de los Soles is drug smuggling, and Tren de Aragua does a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And Tren de Aragua has infiltrated our country. You must have seen in the news how they have taken over complete building complexes, and they smuggle people and human trafficking.
Yes.
They're running I have a friend that lives in New York, and she tells me that after 10 p.m. you cannot get in the metro in New York.
Why?
It's full with Tren de Aragua women of Tren de Aragua with their pimps, with something in their arm, with the flag of Venezuela, with condoms hanging out, and they are offering sex right there in the metro. And my girlfriend, who happens also to be a journalist, she was just pulling her phone out, and suddenly this guy came on her ear and said, "You take a picture or record, and you're dead." So this is how dangerous it is, and they infiltrated the United States, and people don't understand what that regime in that little country.
Okay.
And I'm gonna talk about my country of birth. Okay, that banana republic is running the world.
Is it?
They have interfered in over 70 country elections. I believe in this country also. There are smuggling drug everywhere. There are in connection with Iran and Russia and China and all of the terrorist groups like Hamas and the others are in Venezuela training. So it is a very dangerous situation for the United States because we're in the same country. Let's talk, like we said, geopolitical situation.
Okay.
It is definitely a threat to United States safety, and they already got their people in. They're here.
What do you think the end goal is?
The end goal is the same thing as happened from Venezuela. Is when you would incentivize more crime, and these Tren de Aragua people, they're shameless about how far they can get.
Okay.
In killing people. These are very dangerous criminals. So it's incentivize the crime. They're smuggling people. They're smuggling drugs. And when crime grows, that completely destabilize the country and the cities. And remember, they reproduce. And I always tell people, the problem with illegal immigration is a major problem right now. But multiply them, but the number of people, of children they're going to have. In 18 years, we're not going to recognize this country. That's exactly what happened in Venezuela.
Okay.
The children of those illegal immigrants were the ones who voted for Hugo Chavez, because then Hugo Chavez came with this Peter Pan campaign, "I'm going to take to the rich to give to you." And these people that never adapted to the country, like I can tell you, there were areas with their own flags. They raised their people not feeling proud of being Venezuelans. They hated the country, and he campaigned for them. They were the ones who voted for him. In 80 years, we're not going to recognize this country.
Wow.
And that's what I'm running. I'm running because I'm living this horror movie all over again.
Okay, so you've seen what you've seen firsthand, and you're starting, well, not even really starting, you've already seen the trend here in
Yes.
the United States. Let me ask you, what is your prediction when it comes to the 18th Congressional District? What do you see happening in the next 5 years there?
Well, if once I win, it will
Okay.
be glorious. Because, first of all, I have a bill ready to introduce in Congress to audit the city of Houston and Harris County. Because as
Really?
you know, there is billions of dollars of federal money that was allocated, and nobody knows what the money is.
I did see that from the Houston Chronicle. I did see that.
And it did not go to solve the problems that we're supposed to solve. We have infrastructure problems, the roads. We have a major
Yeah.
problem with floating. Like I said, my slogan is Houston, we have a problem. And I say it shamelessly. This city more and more, I've been in this city since 91, and we more and more look like a third world country city. We have holes and floatings. We have normalized the use of an SUV, but we do it because we have to survive the holes and navigate through the racing waters of Houston, and that's not normal. And like I told you, I will utilize opportunity zones to bring investors and to create jobs and to improve our education, and I will advocate we need to get trade education back. in our high schools, and also have, like for adult education, somebody wants to also, afterwards say, you know what, I want to get trained to be a plumber or an electrician, and we need to do that. And after school programs to have our kids busy. There is nothing wrong with kids after school playing ball. I'm a big baseball fan. In Venezuela, that's a big thing. Well, for us, it's baseball and soccer. And what about these kids and not being a major star in any of our great sports that we have in the United States? But they don't even have the opportunity to even dream about it. Imagine that they can have that and say, you know what? But right now, the way everything is set, for them is something that is from outer space, not even a possibility.
Okay.
And that's what I want to do. I believe in empowering people. I believe in making people better, their life better. And we can do that because the money's there. My district have a major problem in the poor zones of accessing health care.
Okay.
And there are federal programs already in place that should be used in our district that are not being used without spending any extra money because there are already federal programs for that. Why? We're the space city.
Yeah.
We have the biggest and most important medical center in the world. Explain me why Houston looks like this. Why Houston have so much poverty. Why we have so many homeless. As I told you, we have so many vacant buildings and homes in my district that with federal money we can refurbish them and give a home for the homeless.
Mm.
But the homeless not only need a home, they need to be treated, clean, and educated so they can go back to the workforce.
Okay.
That's my plan for the district. But as you know,
What?
they're fighting me so hard.
And why do you think that is?
Because there is a plan for this country to go down the path of socialism. And I've seen it. And even though, the district, we have this famous redistricting that gave us more seats, the cities were left to the Democrats. If you analyze, the cities were this district that was becoming more Republican, 45% Latino now as it is.
It is.
And Latinos were conservative. And Latinos were duped by the Democrats. And I'll tell you why. For many reasons, but now Latinos are like, no. When the Democrats started messing up with our families, that was it for the Latinos. You don't mess up with our kids. And that was it. So historically, this district, every election, the percentage of votes towards Republican has been growing. And then with the Latinos, and it make a difference. So why are the cities left to the complete city and the complete county? San Antonio, Dallas, Austin, Houston left to the Democrats. There is a trend to force people to leave. And then our city, people are leaving
To
Houston.
force people to leave Houston.
Yeah, and become communists. And as long as the cities are Democrats, it doesn't matter how many Republican districts you put in the state, they can still flip the state. Look at California, that's how they did it. And once they flip the state, then they can redistrict again and make it more blue.
Okay.
And the plan is take Texas, because if they take Texas, they take the United States.
Wow. Where can people find you?
Carmen, 4, congress.com. That's my website, and that's you find me in Instagram and X. And you do follow. This is a complete grassroots. The people that have the plan, they don't want it because I'm second in the polls, and
Second.
I'm second in the polls.
Wow.
By their polls, the Democrats poll, and I'm second. So that tells you a lot. And people, like I'm going to tell you, the reason why the Latinos were duped, and not only the Latinos, many immigrants. This was a plan, and that's what I tell you. I've been seeing this happening, and I know this is the plan. In 1984, I don't know if you were old enough to remember that election.
I was born in 1982.
So you don't remember? You were 2 years old. Oh my God, I'm old. 1984 was the election for the second term of Ronald Reagan. I've always been a conservative. Where I was in Venezuela, And I remember being in Venezuela. I was invited to go to the United States Embassy to celebrate that election, and everybody. And I was a great admirer of Ronald Reagan, the great communicator, because I'm in communication, so I think he was the greatest communicator. He was a great president. So I go there and I'm expecting. I was accustomed that the Republicans were blue, and I remember seeing the screens. And the party was in a hotel, beautiful hotel in Caracas called Hotel Tamanaco, and seeing the screens and seeing the screen red because he won big that year, and seeing the map of the United States mostly red, and I was like, oh my God, he lost. How we lost? How could he? And then suddenly, no, Ronald Reagan, and I was like, why red? We Republicans were blue. The media did that. And the Republicans didn't fight it. And red is the color of communism worldwide.
Okay.
So when immigrants come to United States and see the party of red, what do you think they think?
Understood.
Because when immigrants come here,
that's how they make the association.
And you come because you want a better life, and most of the immigrants that come here were coming from countries that fell into communism, socialism, and you see, oh, well, these people are red. And then people have the misunderstanding that this country is a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
This is true.
Okay?
Well, it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be, but they're taking us away from that. So people think, okay, we want democracy because everybody thinks that's what, especially in our countries, because most of our countries are under regimes. So the contrary of regime is democracy. So democracy, Democrats. So that's how they dupe the Latinos and many people. But when the Democrats started messing up with our children, with our families, and with our way of living, because really, we all come here with American dream. We all want to achieve it, okay? And Latinos are hardworking people, entrepreneurs, and that's been more and more difficult year by year for the Latinos. And that's when the Latinos started to see and say, you know what? This party is not representing our values. And that's why they're voting Republican now. And even black men are voting Republican.
This is true.
So I'm telling you, that's why I know I'm going to win.
Okay, well, listen, I can't take sides. VEDA World News does not take sides, but I can definitely tell you, it was definitely an eye-opening experience to be able to talk with you and hear your perspective on geopolitics, politics right here in Houston and abroad. I am definitely inviting you to come back to the show.
Oh, please.
Because I would love to hear more from you. Definitely politics, geopolitics, but just about you as a person, your experiences, your predictions and your forecasts for here of Houston and America and, just the world.
Oh, definitely. And let me add something that I was going to tell you. I forgot. When I moved to Houston, 1991, the crime in the city was one of the worst in United States. And we shamelessly, we were like portrayed about that. But we got a mayor, Bob Lanier, that he was tough on crime. And he hired more police officers. And he fixed the crime in Houston. I remember you could not stop in a stop and go. They used to call it a stop and rob. And he fixed. And I remember Bill Clinton always putting Houston as an example of how crime could be solved.
Okay.
So we need to do it again.
All right, well, we're going to exit here. Again, thank you very much. I am definitely looking forward to having you right here again real soon.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, ma'am. My name is Michael Thurville, sociologist and photojournalist here at VEDA World News. You can catch us on VEDACOM.com with 2 M's. That is VEDACOMM.com. See you soon.